All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know that with everybody kind of either working remote or, on the lunch period, it's hard to get here, so we thank you for that. Um, we are going to be going over Office 365, Microsoft SharePoint, and I wanted to introduce everybody right away. We have Jared Olson on here with us. He is our Cloud Services Manager. Um, so he kind of runs that cloud team over there and makes sure that everything, gets done. We also have Aaron Olson on here. He is a technical consultant and does the majority of the SharePoint migrations, along with Scott Shep, another technical consultant that also does some SharePoint. So they will be talking later on, and they'll also kind of tell a little bit about themselves. I also wanted to let you guys know that there is a question board, and if you want to pull that up, and feel free to submit any questions that you may have. Jared will be letting us know if any of those come up right away. Otherwise, I will be muting all mics until the end, and then there will be a Q&A in the end as well for any of your questions. So just making sure I didn't miss anything. The first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through this agenda here. You can get this. There we go. So I will be going over the Learn on Lunch event series agenda here shortly. Then we will review the Office 365 plans that include SharePoint. A lot of people don't know that they actually have those plans in place already. Then we will go through the statistics and some testimonials, security within SharePoint, SharePoint demo. So Aaron will kind of show everybody, I guess, how it works, and you guys can ask questions if you need to see more in depth. Helpful links we'll provide, and then obviously that Q&A session in the end. So our Learn on Lunch series event this year will, I believe, all be online or virtual, and hopefully next year we can get back to trying to buy some lunch for you guys and have everybody here. August 13th, so next month we're going over managed security for business, the Fortify overview. Essentially what that is a product that we just started selling. It gives it an additional layer to security, and we'll have Mark Farrow, our security lead, be running that one. The Microsoft Office 365 Suite overview, that is September 10th. We will be going over all Office licensing plans, what's included, the security measures on some of them and not on others, that kind of thing. The SEO web marketing, that is October 22nd. We will be having our marketing lady that we use, third party, her name is Kristen. She'll be coming in and trying to explain and help you guys with web marketing. Microsoft Teams will show how to use it, how businesses are communicating in and out of your organization. That's November 12th. And then December 10th is the OnTech client portal training. We have a lot of portals that customers don't know about: ticketing, projects, billing, documentation. So we'll be able to provide all the information on those, how to get into them, how to use them, that sort of thing. So that should be fun. So the first thing we're going to go over here quick is the Office 365 plans that include SharePoint. There are several. There is Business Basic, which was formerly Business Essentials. That really includes all of your Office applications, but those are all online. So you would go to, Office, portal.office.com, and have to log in there to get to those. Business Standard, formerly Business Premium, that is both online and desktop applications. So if you needed the little desktop icon to get into there. Then the Enterprise E1, E3, E5 licenses, those all are kind of the same as Business Standard or Business Premium as it once was called, but they have higher security. And we'll go through that at that September 10th suite overview. And then the SharePoint Online standalone license, that is just the SharePoint license. People use that if they don't need an Exchange email or any other kind of Office applications. So again, we'll be going over that September 10th. Some statistics. We did some research directly in Microsoft and found some of these interesting statistics on SharePoint. Over 250,000 organizations are using SharePoint. 85% of Fortune 500 companies have and use SharePoint. Over 100 million people worldwide use SharePoint. 60% of small businesses still do not have or use SharePoint to assist in the management of their business. 20,000 new SharePoint users every day. 83% of companies using SharePoint depend on it for document management. 30% projected annual growth rate from 2019 to 2020. And then 75% of intranets were built on SharePoint in the last 5 years. Microsoft also gave us the top 6 reasons of why they see businesses moving to SharePoint. Maximize collaboration is the very first one. Essentially, SharePoint allows for effortless sharing of files, news, resources, along with having secure collaboration with team members inside and outside of your organization. We were able to create this PowerPoint all together in separate rooms, and we're able to put things on it and type things in real time rather than me editing it, saving it, sending it over to Aaron, him editing it, saving it, sending it to Scott. It's very awesome to have the real-time collaboration. Easier maintenance is the next one. It takes 80% more time, effort, and money to maintain an existing on-premise network and infrastructure. Oh, sorry. There we go. Along with no more migrations. So once you move to SharePoint, no more version upgrades or platform migrations are needed. That's great because a lot of companies are using time and materials to, upgrade their server every, 5-7 years, or make sure that their network is running properly, that kind of thing. The next one is business security or better security. So data centers have restricted access and have multiple layers of security mechanisms. So that means really that all of your data is secure up in the cloud. Automatic updates. So any new features that are updated, you get as soon as they are released without any manual installation at all. And then you have access to the advanced features such as Flow, Office 365 groups, Power Apps, Delve, Microsoft Graph, those kinds of things immediately with all of those updates. All right, and so now Scott is going to tell you guys on OnTech customer responses. Take it away, Scott.
Scott, we're not hearing you right now.
Well, now.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Very cool. So at what point, anyone hear any of what I had to say? Sorry, I'm in a different conference room.
No, not yet, Scott.
Okay.
So you can start fresh.
Cool. So you didn't hear any mistakes from me. So let's start over. I'm Scott Shep, and I am a senior tech here at OnTech Systems, and I am a part of the SharePoint team. And about 10 years ago, SharePoint was difficult to set up and deploy on local servers. It was cumbersome and complex to maintain, and it was rather scary for the end users to work with. And a few years ago, when SharePoint changed to online system, OnTech started to use it, and we really began to embrace the new functionality of the cloud version. So far this year, I've completed about 10 deployments, and even though none of them have been the same as far as design and deployment, the end results and responses are almost exactly the same from customers, and they are very happy with their decision to move to SharePoint. And I'm going to show you a little bit of some of the top responses. Okay, so the first question that we asked a lot of our SharePoint migration customers was, what made you decide to move to SharePoint? The top responses on there: reduce capital expenses, move data to the cloud, redesign the file and folder structure, allow remote users to access data, and to share documents securely. Probably that top one gets people's attention first because they're used to paying for a new server. And then the redesign the file and folder structure was one that at least most of my clients saw an opportunity to kind of get their folders naming convention and data structure in line. And next we were asking about what their initial concerns were going into it. The top one by far was learning curve and how the layout changes were going to look like after migration. Losing data or duplicating data during migration, uncertainty about the timeline, uncertainty about the cost, ease of use, and then the one size of my company kind of stands out to me. For whatever reason, some smaller companies feel like having a cloud presence might not be attainable for them, and that's simply not true. And the learning curve portion as well kind of goes out the window when they see that we can make the SharePoint look and feel just like their normal end user experience. If you're used to having mapped network drives or shortcuts on your desktop, we can make SharePoint look and feel the same way. Then we wanted to see what benefits they were seeing immediately after moving to SharePoint. They saw end users could access data securely and remotely. That data access could be from anywhere, any device, and any time. And then the one that jumps out to most people right now in our current environment is it kept employees productive during the COVID epidemic. For companies that spent a lot of time and effort locking down data and keeping it in-house, suddenly in March, we were presented with this kind of new normal, and all of a sudden you had users that needed access outside of the office. People who were already on SharePoint, end users had their computers at home and they worked just as if they were in the office. We had a couple of migrations in flight during that time, and they saw the benefit once the migrations were complete that end users could securely access data and work as if they were in the office. The other ones are more logical file and folder structure and large revision history of files as part of the SharePoint online system. Next was, what benefits do you see in the future? Allowing the users to upload data and pictures from mobile devices. This is one that I see a lot of with some of my clients who have field workers. Say a technician is on site at a job. They take a picture with their phone, upload it to SharePoint. Project manager might be back at the office, can instantly open that photo, add text. Field technician can see that. They can also forward it on to the client whose job they're working on. Very streamlined and no emailing of documents back and forth. Next one was mobile device access to files. Same way with that. You're heading to a meeting, you want a quick look at some files, access it on your phone. Sharing documents with outside users of the organization, workflow features, and enables business agility. Some of these are as clients start using SharePoint and they get to see all of the bells and whistles that are entailed, they start to bend how they're using it currently, and the workflow features and the outside organizations, clients really come to appreciate being able to not send spreadsheets and Word documents across email for edits. They can edit them on the fly. And how you see your usage changing, this is pretty fluid as people start to get their first year of SharePoint under their belt. Logical structure where data should be stored. Accounting data is stored in the accounting site, HR data is stored in the HR site, and so forth. Increased mobile users, same thing here. Once users get the look and feel of using working data on their mobile device for small edits and sharing, they see that becoming an asset of the SharePoint. Advanced data restore functionality and leveraging SharePoint to future-proof their company. The data restore functionality is super advanced. You can go back in time to an edit that you made on a spreadsheet from 2 weeks prior and restore that, and future-proofing your company. Companies that are used to or have been through physical server migration know the capital expense to that and the pain and the time it takes. SharePoint is always up to date and always online. So going forward, companies know that they can trust it. I have 4 brief examples of companies that I've worked with in the local area here. And this one was a landscape company who has 30 users, and about half of them are inside and half of them can be inside or outside on job sites. They had a file server that was 2008 Windows server, and that server was to be upgraded. They had recently moved some applications to the cloud and thought now was the good time to move their data. Their goals that we set out to achieve were to address the folder structure prior to SharePoint migration, create SharePoint sites with logical structure, create security groups that matched the SharePoint logical site access, and make the end user experience consistent to their existing processes. So in this particular migration, we renamed all the folders to the 9 different root folders going in. So they had a lot of folders that, like most of you over time, get named really odd names, and maybe Mary's folder contains accounting, but also HR, and John's data folder contains job work and his personal data. So we did that beforehand. Then we named out our 9 logical structures and the security groups to match, and we really wanted to make the end user experience very consistent. Their users had mapped network drives and desktop shortcuts, and we went about that and really hit on all the main points there, and they're very satisfied with that. Next company.
Scott, if I could just make a comment on that last slide, could you go back
Sure.
for a second?
Yeah.
I wanted to call out one particular thing there. So a lot of our customers, as they're coming up for either hardware replacement, so their hardware might be coming up on a warranty expiration, 5 to 7 years. They may be looking at alternative options for replacing that hardware. So in that instance that we have up on the slide right now, I think in conjunction with the hardware being old, it was also that the operating system on the server was old. So 2008 is no longer directly supported by Microsoft. So if you think about reasons to consider a migration or times that you might want to look at changing your business structure, those would be times to look at warranty expiration, outdated software that might be going out of support, and then back to that reducing capital expenditure. if you're having to buy the hardware, you're having to buy the networking equipment, the operating system, the licenses, that can add up as a big capital expenditure, versus the way that Microsoft runs it is more per user, per employee base. So it's a lot more predictable, a lot more operational expense rather than that capital expenditure. So I wanted to just call that quick out. So Scott, sorry, you can keep going.
No, that's a good call out. Okay, so the next company that I wanted to highlight was a very small employment agency, small by the number of users, that is. Only 4 users, 3 of them in the office, and one of the owners out of in a different city altogether. They had a fairly new server with a compliant operating system, but they wanted to make the data easily accessible to the owner outside the office. They wanted to create a better and more logical data structure with some security, and transition needed to be seamless as their internal staff was not as technical as most people, and they wanted to clean up the naming conventions after the deployment. So in this one, the owner had been used to using VPN to get into the network and then access files. No longer does he have to do that. The files are synced to his laptop via SharePoint. The folders now were 4 root folders: general staff, accounting, HR, and management. And security groups were based off of those. So now only the eyes that have permission to see the data can. And then the cleanup of the files and folders after the conversion, this one was different because some people want it to look exactly the same, and they don't want to panic if they're used to going to that example of Mary's folder to access the accounting data. So after the conversion was complete, then we circle back with them to make changes to the naming convention and do them properly. And if they were oddball names, we made the changes after. So their staff was quite comfortable. And actually, this particular client, when asked on the survey, actually called out that she knew she was using SharePoint, but she didn't really think so on a daily basis because it was that transparent and similar to what she was used to. The next one is a Union Cooperative, 4 users, 2 of them primarily inside and 2 primarily outside and inside. Same scenario, similar servers, still compliant with Microsoft, but they wanted end users to have more secure and easy access to data while remote, and group data in more up-to-date and logical structure, archive data after the SharePoint rollout, and allow more collaboration and project work. Pretty much similar as the other 2 here. This one, they have a lot of archive type data that they touch hardly ever, some of it, but they still needed it accessible to them if they wanted to go back and review. This office as well, during the COVID stuff, they were kind of right in that let's get it done quick kind of phase, and I think they immediately saw the benefits of moving to SharePoint. And this one is a manufacturer locally, 20 users, most of them all users internal, one owner outside, and 1 remote facility up north. They were using an actual workstation computer as the file server. So they were looking for better control of document access. They wanted to do a structure for different levels of security for their staff. So a management security group, a general staff that could only read documents, an administrative staff that could edit documents, and so on. They also wanted a touchless cloud-based backup. So they were used to swapping USB drives plugged into this workstation to run backups to, and now with SharePoint and the Skykick backup that we utilize, nobody has to touch anything, and it gets cloud to cloud backup in real time. And they also had a spreadsheet that was very important to their line of business. And anytime someone would be in it, they'd have to yell down the hall for someone to get out of it to make changes. If someone made an update to Microsoft Excel, then it would break all the hyperlinks inside the document. So we just did an online spreadsheet for them through SharePoint, and it works out great. They can have multiple people in it at the same time. You can see who's making changes as you are. So they're really pleased and saw the benefits right out of the gate as soon as they went live. So the similarities, as I briefly went through all these, obviously licensing, ease, and access. All of these customers either had Microsoft licensing in place or were planning on transitioning to it. So with Office 365, the business standard version, you get the SharePoint license for that end user. So if you have 15 users, you get 15 licenses and you're ready to go. All of these customers wanted the end user experience to be as close to how they are currently working. And with SharePoint, that can be done seamlessly with shortcuts, with map drives, and end users working with installed applications that they know and love, like Outlook and Word and Excel, seems exactly the same, except it's synced to the cloud through SharePoint. And all of them wanted a chance to clean up the data structure with also an added layer of logical security. So you can use this time either before the migration or after the migration to kind of get your stuff in line with how your business is operating now and how you want it to look and operate in the future. And with that, I think that I'm on my last slide here. And speaking of security, I think we will have Aaron, who is our SharePoint guru, talk to you a little bit about security and some other things. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
While Aaron's getting set up here, I just wanted to mention that if you're not sure where to put your questions and look at the answers, in the upper right corner, if you have the Teams application, there are a few little icons from the left to the right. One looks like a little heartbeat sensor. The one right next that shows a question with a little communication box behind it. If you click that, you'll see on the right-hand side a Q&A section where you can write your questions in there. So Aaron, feel free to take it over.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Aaron Olson. I'm a technical consultant here at OnText Systems. I'm going to be going over security with SharePoint, and then later we'll be going through a demo on how SharePoint works and the functionality of it and the benefits. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to talk about is OneDrive for Business. OneDrive for Business is basically built on top of SharePoint. It's the program that connects your computer to SharePoint, to all the files. Basically, we can upload any type of file that you want to SharePoint or your personal OneDrive. But we're noticing that certain ransomware is starting to target files within SharePoint, so we like to block known ransomware extensions within OneDrive for Business, and I've seen this work. I did a SharePoint migration not too long ago, and they had some files that were left over from a previous ransomware attack, and with adding those extensions, it blocked those files from being uploaded to SharePoint. Because the effect that it can have is it can write across all the files on SharePoint, which can affect all the end users. And if we don't have a good backup like Skykick, for example, to restore those files, it's hard to restore from a ransomware attack on SharePoint. So we like to use the known, I think it's like 32, 35 file extensions that we use to block those. Also, we can block other files if companies want, like MP3s blocked, videos blocked, pictures, any other type of files that they don't find that they need to use for like company use, we can block those as well. So oops. Okay, security with SharePoint. So security can be done at the document level library, which is the high level. We can also go down to a file folder level with unique permissions, or we can go even deeper with another file folder level permission. So we can make it as granular as somebody wants or as non-granular as they want. The more granular that you make the permissions, the harder it is to manage if the end user wants to manage it versus us managing it. Some of the permissions that we can do is read only. where the person only has the ability to read and download documents. The other type is we can do edit, where they can edit the documents, make changes. They can invite people. If we have external sharing turned on, they can invite external users for documents and everything. The other one is design. So basically design can add users to internal uses of SharePoint sites, do permissions. They can change the look on how SharePoint looks. Basically everything like edit, read only, and then full control is basically having admin access rights with that. So that usually it's just given to the administrator, the Office 365 admin, and from there you can make changes. It gives you change for everything. So if a regular user has full control and they don't know what they're doing with SharePoint, you can push the wrong button and you can blow everything away by mistake, which is never good. So usually full control isn't given out unless somebody fully knows how to work with SharePoint, because you can do a lot of damage on the back end. The other thing with full control too is you can add users, you can change sharing permissions, you basically have the keys to the house. So anything a global admin can do, you can do with full control.
Hey Aaron, can we stay on this slide for a second?
Yeah.
This is Jared, our cloud services manager. So one of the benefits of structuring your SharePoint permissions in such a way like this is to limit your attack surface. I know that sounds like a newfangled term, but we use it in IT a lot nowadays because of the increase in ransomware and the increase in cyber attacks against any company, whether they're running their equipment internally or they're running in a cloud service. So traditionally, a lot of companies that we've consulted with have a very limited structure in terms of how they provide access to their end users. So for example, Scott Shep earlier was talking about how logically we would break it down potentially by department. So you have accounting, HR, general staff, and then management that would all get varying levels of permission. We don't see that as much as we would like on traditional like file systems. So if one of your end users opens an email attachment that has ransomware infection associated with it, any map drive that user has access to, that ransomware can get to and encrypt your data. So for example, if I'm just a general user and I don't need the accounting folder, the HR folder, the management folder, the production folder, but yet it's mapped on my computer, and I were to do something silly and open something unfamiliar, click a link, that ransomware can basically crawl through anything that I have access to. So one of the big reasons why we like to look at it up front and structure it properly up front is to limit the attack surface, limit the risk that you might be taking for that. So I wanted to just throw that out there. Aaron, you can go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, the other thing is too with SharePoint, you only give the users as much permission as they need. So you like to start with the bare minimum and then we can work up from there. We also can customize security groups as well. You can customize it where the user doesn't have the delete function, or they can't edit, or they can just view only and they can't download. So we can customize on each user's needs and what fits their structure. The other thing with SharePoint is the recommended way of creating groups is with security groups are through Office 365. Here's some examples of SharePoint groups that have been set up in the past. So you have a security group called SP Accountant. So basically that would be your accounting people. SP-all is everyone. And then you have like individual persons like SP/Deborah, SP/Leonard. So those are like individual users that are created for the security groups. And then you have SP operations, which would be operations people. So the great thing about security groups, the only people that can change or add people in is global admins within Office 365. So that adds another layer of protection versus just doing your standard SharePoint security groups within SharePoint. Also,
Aaron,
too.
Oh, you go finish. I'll make a comment before you go to the next slide.
Also, the other thing too is the great thing with these, if you have Azure Active Directory licensing, P2, you can sync this to your Azure Active Directory, and that gives you another layer of security that you can have with SharePoint as well.
That's a great point, Aaron. So I think there's some additional benefits that would be wise to bring up at this time as well. So let's say you're hiring a new accountant or you're bringing somebody new into your accounting team. To provide them access to the permissions that you need, that are the files that they need access to, it's simply a matter of creating an Office 365 login for them and adding them to the security group like Aaron referred to. So the ease of use and onboarding new employees, the ease of use of providing them access to the files that they need is really there. And alternatively, if let's say there's a disgruntled employee or something like that where you have to potentially terminate that employment with that individual, it's a matter of simply disabling or changing the Office 365 login password, and then all that the file access becomes inaccessible to that user. So there's some side benefits that you can look at too. Normally when we need new employees added to groups, it's a little more time consuming on a traditional file server. We just have to hop into a couple different applications and tweak a few things and test a few things out. In SharePoint, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott or Aaron, it's typically a lot easier if it's structured properly from the beginning. So that's all I had to say on that, Aaron. You can go ahead and take over.
All right. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is SharePoint sites that can be shared with external user. This, depending on how users want it, most companies want it turned off because they don't want to share any of the resources outside, but there are some companies that do work with outside vendors that like to share stuff. So you can make it as loose as you want, where they send out a link and anybody with that link can access it. Or you can set it up where the link expires after so many days. So some companies do 30, 60, 90, 6 months. Also too, you can set it up when you share out that link with somebody, only that person that signs up with that email address can only use that link. And then if they want to share it with somebody else, they can't, so it blocks that. We can also set it up too, so where they get a code after they create a Microsoft account, so like having like an extra layer of multi-factor authentication they have to use when they view the files that you're sharing out. Also, you can give the users only view access. You can also give them edit mode so they can edit the documents. And the other thing is whatever SharePoint security, SharePoint has to be higher security than OneDrive. It can't be the opposite where OneDrive's more secure than SharePoint. It won't work. So I sit down with the end users to find out if they want to share out files or not share out files. The other thing too is you can limit it by domains. The problem with limiting it by the domain address or the email, if you have users that are using like a Gmail, AT&T, a Yahoo email, you have to add the Yahoo email to Gmail in. There's no way to just limit it by that one email address. So that's kind of the downside of limiting it by domains. It's pretty easy. The user gets a link from Microsoft. If they don't have a Microsoft account, they can create an account either using like their Gmail address, or they can create a new one like Outlook.com, and it walks them through the steps. They get a link, and then from the one they get the link, they can sign into SharePoint online there. They won't need a license for SharePoint because that's all included for the end users, so they can work on them on the cloud and stuff. They can even sync them to their OneDrives on their computer if they're signed in that way too, and they can just work from the OneDrive instead of doing it online if they want. Alrighty, so let's go to the demo here. All right, the SharePoint demo that we've created, this is called a SharePoint hub site. So think of a hub kind of like a bicycle wheel with spokes and stuff. So we have a main center location, which would be a home page, and it gives you this great search engine where you can search files and see what's in your SharePoint. It's very powerful. If you can't find something, usually I tell most people to go online to use the search. and the file usually appears. The other thing the home page is good for is using it as a company intranet, so you can put like a vacation calendar on there, links that employees would find useful for like going to insurance websites to, you know, check information there, or employee company events. When I worked at JCPenney's, they used to use it when they used to have parties within the warehouse, going to waste retirement parties, baby showers, stuff like that. It was just a great resource for all the employees to go and find the information they need. As you can see here, we have a vacation calendar, which I can click on here. So the vacation calendar is great because you can add it to your Outlook and it'll save in the cloud, and then also it'll sync across. So whatever you edited the vacation calendar in Outlook, it'll sync back to SharePoint and vice versa. So it's a great place to have, like, where, you know, a vacation calendar or meetings or whatever, so everyone can view what's going on versus your typical shared calendar in Outlook. The other thing you can put on here is company contacts. So if you have, you know, general vendor contacts that you need to share for your employees, or you could have one central location instead of, you know, Fran has some on her computer and then Dina has some on her computer, you could just all have them in one spot. Also, you can throw links to like news websites. You can even throw a link to your company website page too for users. And then we'll go up here. We have a SharePoint site called Management. So basically, we have document libraries over here called Operations, owner Aaron Rogers, owners Giannis, new employee training. So basically, this is where we can limit SharePoint on the site level for permissions as well to the document library, like I said, and then we can go down to the file structure. And then the great thing about this is you can hit the sync here and it will open up OneDrive, and you can sync those files to your OneDrive, which will be accessible on your computer versus accessing it on the website. I leave it up to the end user on how they want to, you know, access files. Some people like access them online. Some people like accessing them through OneDrive. So if we open up here, we'll just open up this one right here. So as you can see, here's a PowerPoint presentation online. If other users want to use it as well, you'll have like their names will be popped up over here, and then you can see who's editing. As you can see, as I have my little picture here on Teams showing that I'm on the file. That's about all I have for the SharePoint demo.
Aaron, I'm going to pull one thing up here. So and then I'll let Hope take back control here in a second. Okay, so let me pull up. I wanted to show you guys what it looks like from a traditional, you know, Aaron talked about, or I think Scott, maybe both of you guys talked about how we can make it so somewhat reflect what users are used to seeing in terms of how their folders are structured within the Windows Explorer application. So when Aaron, excuse me, when Aaron hit that sync button, essentially what he did was he made that accessible in his normal Windows Explorer. And this is all the document libraries that Aaron was talking about and how they be structured. So this, for example, is our general sales documents that our sales team utilizes. And this is where we store our Learn on Lunch event series. So you can see, you know, that we're synchronized here. Some of these files are only accessible in the cloud. So that's one of the benefits of if you have low hard drive space, for example, and you're running a compatible version of Windows, the desktop operating system. So Windows 10 as an example, we can set it up so it doesn't synchronize everything to where it's going to take a full day for it to synchronize all of your data. We can basically say, well, I don't need to synchronize this unless I need access to it. So right now, this little one I haven't opened in a while, so it's not downloaded onto my computer. But as soon as I double click it and request it, it's going to indicate that this is a file, this is a folder that I wanted on my system at that time. So I think that's a huge benefit to this as well, to be able to save time, save space, and provide ease of use access to the system. And additionally, you can copy and paste, move things over pretty easily. The things that you can't do is you can't really rename this main folder level. That's something that has to be done on the back end. And there's a few other things that you'd maybe want to avoid that we would go through during a training seminar. So Aaron, I believe there's a couple different ways that we do training. So we can train the trainer where we indicate 1 or 2 or 3 department leads or IT managers or whoever that person is that's going to be our main contact. And we train them, and then they go train their end users once they're familiar with it and ready for it. Another option is to train all the end users directly, either by groups or individually, however that organization wants that to happen. But it is key, I believe, unless your entire user base is 100% comfortable and familiar with SharePoint and SharePoint Online, that the training aspect should not be overlooked as you're looking to make this type of transition. And one of the things that we do is we go through a SharePoint questionnaire that we've developed that helps us with our initial discovery of, okay, where's your data? Is it only on your server? Okay, if it is, this is how we follow our plan. If it's not, and Aaron's coming across this right now, where customer may have documents in Google Drive, they may have documents in OneDrive personal folders, they may have documents in Dropbox and Box and all these other cloud providers. Those are things that we consider and we look at during that initial questionnaire and discovery. So it also, during that time, gives you an opportunity to really reduce your clutter, eliminate old data. So like Scott talked about cleanup, that's the time to do it. A lot of our companies look at that time as now is the time to restructure, make sure our security is right, and do this the right way rather than bringing in old data that no longer needs to be used. From a compliance standpoint, so if you have to comply with HIPAA regulations, if you have to comply with FINRA or FIPS or whatever other PCI, there are ways to attain that compliance and match that compliance with SharePoint. So if there's any concerns with that, we can definitely talk with you guys offline and reach out to either Hope or anybody else on this call, or if you have an account manager already, feel free to reach out to them. So I will turn it over to Hope to kind of take us through the last few steps of this presentation. All right, Hope, you should have control now, but you are muted.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to finagle a couple screens and try and get myself unmuted, but thank you so much, Scott and Aaron and Jared, for kind of explaining some of that. I forgot with all the hustle and bustle in the beginning to introduce myself, so sorry about that. I am Hope Drews. I work here at OnTech as a account manager. I manage all of our current existing customers, or most of them, with making sure you guys have everything you need and making sure the techs are doing what they need. So like Jared said earlier, if you guys are interested, you need more questions answered or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. Our information is on this slideshow that I believe that we will be sending out. So any questions, you can send them there. Otherwise, I also want to let you guys know that if you did want to sign up for other Learn on Lunches, just search OnTech on the Eventbrite site, just kind of like probably how you did with this. And then that we can, move forward with those. So now we're going to open it up for questions. We'll unmic everybody. If you guys want to submit any questions or let us know any questions, we are happy to do so.
Yeah, and Hope, we may have some issues at the audio portion of the questions. We can go ahead and try to unmute everybody. But if you do have a question, I would probably try to throw it into that chat log that we have on the right-hand side or the upper right-hand corner. Yeah. If we don't start getting questions flowing in, I will just start bringing up some questions that we've been asked and maybe show a little bit more, because we do have a little bit of time left over. We do respect everybody's time, but we want to make sure that we are addressing everything. So at this point in time, I'm not seeing anything asked out there. So one thing I will do while we wait is I wanted to show you guys a little bit of integration between applications. So as Hope mentioned at the beginning, there are different platforms that Office 365 provides. One of the things that we're seeing is this increased collaboration reach into other applications. So you have SharePoint that can talk to Microsoft Teams, and that is what we're actually hosting this event on, is Microsoft Teams. We utilize it for a lot of different reasons. One, for conducting our video and audio conferences. So whether that's internal meetings, external meetings, we run that through there. We also do it as just a simple chat log. So if you guys are familiar with business, or Skype for Business rather, Microsoft bought Skype for Business and kind of redeveloped it as Teams, and now they're slowly phasing out Skype for Business. So if you are on Skype for Business, you do have to migrate to Microsoft Teams or some other solution within the time frame of Microsoft shutting that service down. So if you need any help with that as well, we've done SharePoint, we've done Skype for Business to Teams migrations as well. But in addition to the video conferencing and the audio conferencing and the chatting, we can also do a straight up phone system. So we can call each other via Teams. We can call each other from a cell phone to a Teams phone number, a Teams phone to a cell phone number, and there's a lot of capabilities within it. And then I'm going to pull up right here kind of an example. We have all these various teams within our organization that we might throw specific files out there. So as an example, we developed this COVID resources when everything with the pandemic started. Just some general, tips on what to do with the Teams application and how everybody can engage with their children at home, for example, if they have, limited activities that they can provide. But one of the really cool things is you can add storage to this, and you can link SharePoint document libraries and files directly into your Teams application. So you're really integrating and collaborating at a higher level than you was ever capable before. And I think that's something that gets often overlooked. In addition, you can add tabs that we haven't even looked at yet, because the system is a software as a service application that we subscribe to. So like Scott and Hope talked about earlier, the features get rolled out almost faster than we can keep up with. So if there's something in here that your organization uses, you can very easily integrate that into the system as well. So I wanted to be able to provide that additional measure as well. And let me see if we've had any other questions pop up in here. Okay, so we've got two questions here. The question is, what is the need of a third-party backup? Doesn't SharePoint Sites backup by Microsoft? So Aaron, if you could briefly discuss that, and Scott, if you have any comments to add on after Aaron, feel free to add on.
So SharePoint has what is called versioning history. So basically it starts by default, it saves 500 versions of edits. I think it can go up to like 2,000 version edits. So that basically just saves the changes that are made to a document, versus if that document gets deleted off SharePoint and then the trash bin gets no one realizes it's been deleted, it sits in the trash bin for 93 days and then it auto deletes, or someone were to delete the file off of OneDrive into their desktop, then that file is gone off of SharePoint, or they drag the file from OneDrive for Business onto their desktop. So that's why a backup's needed. I've seen it where users mistakenly are new to SharePoint and they're starting to create shortcuts, and they don't create the shortcuts right. They just drag them onto their desktop. Like on a file server, if you drag a file from your map drive to your desktop, it creates a shortcut. Well, with OneDrive for Business, it moves that file right off of SharePoint, puts it on the user's desktop. So that's why you want a backup. So in case there's anything like that happens, or worst cases, if some new type of ransomware got on there, we didn't have the new file extension for, that way we can restore the files. So it's always good to have that that case if something happens to have that backup. So and the backup for SkyKick retention is unlimited. So I have some users that got 2-3 terabytes worth of backups in the cloud. So in case I can go back from day one when they did the SharePoint migration 2 years ago, they need some file that they haven't touched or got deleted, didn't know about, I can restore that file back for them. So it's a nice safe net to have.
Yeah, and Scott, I'll give you a second if you had anything to add on to that. Otherwise, I've got a couple other things to add on to that. One other reason that you might want a third-party backup solution is some of our customers have legal hold requirements. So if they're a law firm or otherwise, they may have a requirement or an obligation to the advisory the regulatory compliance board or something like that, where they need to have the ability to retain data for X amount of years. That would be one other reason. Another reason might be that you've had a previous case of somebody kind of trying to take data and get rid of it when they're disgruntled or something like that. We've had instances where we can go back to mailboxes that somebody had previously deleted. That's a different type of backup. That's more of an email backup, but similarly with files, those would be a couple of reasons why you'd want to back up. But great question, great question. So it's really dependent on your level of risk also. You know, if you're not concerned, we're not going to force it. You're not going to be forced to do it, but it is simpler to restore a file using a backup tool than having to go back to a previous version and kind of dig through and find that file that way. So that would be one reason to do it as well. Another reason I'm seeing, and this is kind of a bleeding edge or way ahead of the curve, but we might start to see it become more accessible, is we have a vendor that we're evaluating as a backup tool where it has what they call a chat bot. So if I'm an end user and I delete my production file from today and I need to go back, you can open up this chat bot and say, I need to restore a file. You click a link, it takes you to this, what folder was it in? So that can limit the amount of labor that you're having to pay a third-party consultant, or your IT department can focus more on other things than restoring files for people. So that would be more of a future look at a feature that's coming out that could be accessible and used. We've got two more other questions I want to get to really fast here. And thank you everybody for submitting these questions. We really do appreciate it. It helps us learn and grow as well. Can a live QuickBooks file be stored in SharePoint so multiple QuickBooks users would have access to the same company file? That is a great question. Aaron, Scott, who wants to take that one?
I don't know. I can talk on what my clients have done, and usually the clients that I've worked with only have 1 or 2 QuickBooks users anyway. So the main QuickBooks user or accountant in the office is sharing the QuickBooks company files from their computer. And then we are doing automatic backups to SharePoint directory on their computer. So then it gets synced up to the cloud. So user 1 in the office is a QuickBooks user and user 2 is a QuickBooks user. And both are using the shared company files off of QuickBooks 1 user's computer. They are not using QuickBooks company files off of SharePoint directory, only the backups going there.
Aaron, have we had any that use that file directly in where it's not shared off of one of the endpoints? I believe we have.
I haven't had any customers I haven't done any testing where you could upload the file and then try to connect to QuickBooks to it. I know Sage is another product, but that's built into Sage where you can enable OneDrive for backup for Sage files into OneDrive.
Okay. So the person that posted that question is listed as anonymous. We could definitely engage with QuickBooks support and Microsoft support to really vet that out and ensure that it would be supported by both parties. But very good question, and we could definitely get back with you if you want to reach out to us, or you can post your name into that question or put a new question in, and we will help you out with that. Some organizations are looking to go with QuickBooks Online. It's definitely a little bit of a watered down version of the client that gets installed on a local machine, but that's something to also potentially consider, or that we advise our customers to consider. You know, does it match the features that you need online? Is it cost effective for you? Is that something you want to try or not? And then if not, then we would go another direction with that. But a very, very good question. Third-party applications being hosted in a SharePoint site can definitely be tricky and kind of taken on a case-by-case basis. The next question is, does Barracuda Backup support SharePoint OneDrive backups? Do either Scott or Aaron want to take that? Otherwise, I can.
I can. So SharePoint Online, I think it's the Essentials part, isn't it, Jared? The Barracuda Online Essentials. I have one customer that runs it, so there is a cloud version that'll do the Office 365, SharePoint, and then the backups and stuff. So there is that option too. But so yes, it'll do it. So you have to weigh the. I mean, we can quote that out, or we usually quote out Skykick, because Skykick seems to be a little bit cheaper than doing the Barracuda route, but Barracuda Online does support SharePoint and Office 365.
Great. Yeah, I would agree with that. It kind of depends on what plan or what license you have with Barracuda, and maybe Hope can speak to that a little further if need be. But if you have the subscription that allows you to do it, you can definitely back up that data. I believe additionally you can back up Office 365 email as well through that solution too. And we did get a kind of a post back on that previous question about QuickBooks, saying that our response was very helpful. The user here, this person, did not prefer to use the QuickBooks Online for multiple reasons, so our solution would work great in that case. And let me see if I have any more questions in here. I do not see anything else. Computers, edit security. Okay. Well, I guess if we don't have any further questions, it looks like some people are dropping off the webinar. We will be sending out a link to the webinar, where you can either play the video or you can download the slide deck. So we'll be getting that out as soon as possible. And if anything else comes up, Hope, feel free to tell them how to contact us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of the week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.